This would probably cost us, when all is said and done, about $5 to come up with a solution that I think would work for tomatoes. It would really, again, work for just about anything you're growing in your GreenStalk that's a little bit taller. Guten Yardening, everybody. Well, behind me, camouflaged quite nicely by these red, white, and blue potatoes, is our original GreenStalk Vertical Garden. And these potatoes are performing really well, considering we only planted them just over 1 month ago. Now, they're growing so well that we have a slight issue, one that we found a solution to, and I'm going to show you that in addition to providing you a little tour so you can see just how well these potatoes are growing and what we've observed along the way. But before I do that, I want to remind you that down in the description below, there's a link and a code for $10 off your own GreenStalk system using code Guten. So check that out if what you see here interests you. Now, if you've never seen a GreenStalk garden before, or you didn't see our earlier video where we planted these red, white, and blue potatoes, I encourage you to go back because we talk about how the setup works, how the watering system works, which is really a key feature here, watering in one space up top that then flows out to each of the 5 tiers below. And we have 30 different areas here where we're growing potatoes. And again, there's red in the middle, white on either side of that, and blue on the top and bottom. In each of these pockets, you can see some grayish looking material, and that's because right before I started filming this video, I added some bone meal and some Langbeinite. That's some phosphorus and some potassium here. And the reason I did that is because these potatoes are starting to flower. So that's the time when we come back in and we feed them the bone meal, and we like to feed them the Langbeinite. We'll have links to both of those in the description below as well, if that's something you'd like to use. Now I want to take a look at a couple of the things that I'm noticing while these plants are developing. And the first one I want to show you is happening right down here in this little pocket. Now if you look closely, you can see that this particular potato does not seem to be thriving like all of the other potatoes. And I mean, every other one of these potatoes in all the different pockets seems to be doing better than this one in particular, and I'm not 100% sure why. You know, in a lot of other vertical containers like this one, you might suspect that maybe it didn't get enough water. Our friend at Geeky Gardens, who first inspired us to try growing potatoes in this original setup, did give us some advice early on. He said that his lower layers were struggling the most in terms of the quantity of potatoes produced. And so one of the things we're trying to do is to avoid the problem he mentioned by consistently watering at the top to make sure that each tier gets the amount of water needed. The way this watering system works, the way it disperses throughout all of the pockets evenly, I can tell you that the soil is plenty damp. It's gotten enough water. It's got the same water as the potato right next door, and the difference in this stem is extraordinary. I mean, this is tiny and the other one's not. So my thought, my speculation here is that the reality of what's happening is it's just not a very good seed potato. A little bit earlier in the season, we did a video, and I highly recommend this video, about how to select the best seed potatoes and what you want to do as you're planting. This Adirondack Blue potato seems to be a weaker seed potato, just this one in particular. I mean, if you look at the other Adirondack Blues that are planted around, their stems are thicker, they have better green growth, and so my speculation is it's the seed potato itself, this one in particular, that had the problem. But I'd love to know what your thoughts are about this one little pocket of growth. Now, it's not every day that we see potatoes 6.5+ feet off of the ground, but that's one of the benefits of vertical gardening. Remember, I have 6 pockets, I have 5 tiers, so I have the potential for about 30 potato plants growing in here. And now, as you can see, they're even beginning to flower. In fact, all over this tower, we're seeing different flowering open up, which means that what we're getting right now is the beginning of that tuber formation period that's so exciting for us. And the fact that it's consistent all the way around is a huge bonus for this system. You know, one of the other things I want to point out here as well is just how thoroughly covered this GreenStalk Vertical Garden is. I mean, there is greenery everywhere. It is not just this thin, flimsy growth either. These are sturdy stems. Take a look at that. All the way through it seems like these potatoes are really nice and healthy because there is consistent and equal exposure to the sun. And so that's one of the other things about the location that we chose for this. Now, this excellent growth has actually led us to the challenge that I referenced earlier in the video. You see these wonderful stalks look very healthy, are very healthy, and are on average, I would say 18 to 24 inches tall, which means that they're getting pretty heavy. And we don't want the wind to come along, especially if there's a massive storm or something like that. We don't want it to come along and break these off or bend them over because, well, as sturdy as they are and as strong as they are, there is the possibility that that could happen. So we needed to find a way to support this growth. Our solution to this challenge is simple and effective. These are 11 3/4 inch bamboo skewers, the kind that you would grill on. So really simple, basically a foot long. You see a pointy end here, which I'm not sure is necessary, but certainly makes it easier to do what we're about to do with them. And then we have some thin gauge steel wire. This is something you could find at just about any hardware store. It's really malleable. We've cut a segment of the wire that's 10 inches long, and what we're going to do is we're going to basically create a smiley face. We have a smiley face here. We create 2 hooks on either side. I think you can see what I'm talking about when I say it's a smiley face. What we're using are, again, reusable pieces that are interchangeable, really. So if you had some sticks that you had lying around, some small sticks, they would work. If you wanted to use zip ties or twine or something like that, that would also work for this. And we're going to use these 3 items for each of our pockets to hold our potato stems in place. All right, I'm going to pick a place where the pockets join together, and I'm going to take these 2 skewers. I'm going to take one at a time, and I'm going to slip them right down at the edge of the pocket. So we'll have one on either side. Perfect, just like that. So that'll hold, if you can see here, that'll hold plenty of weight for what we have going on. And now I'm going to get under a couple of these bigger sprouts with my wire, and I'm going to push them back up toward where these skewers are. And I'm just going to allow the skewers to hook into the wire, and it will sit just like this. So now this is stable, and I've actually captured a couple of them in here, but there's no pressure on them really. So if I come off to the side, you can see now they're being held in place, and I can do this the whole way along here. Now, one of the things I think is really cool and effective about the system of skewers and metallic C's that we have put in here to hold these stems in place is that it's highly modifiable depending on the stem, the location of the stem, or really, I guess, whatever vegetable you're trying to grow in your GreenStalk Vertical Garden. And what I mean by that is we don't just have to put them in the exact same space each time. We could use 1 skewer instead of 2. And if we need to, we can hook the C's together if we need to reach out a little bit farther to pull a stem back so that we're not putting too much pressure on the plant. You know, whatever really is needed in order to make this work. Now, this solution is probably going to take me about 10 minutes to put together for everything. It's really simple, and again, parts are interchangeable. This would probably cost us, when all is said and done, about $5 to come up with a solution that I think would work for tomatoes. It would really, again, work for just about anything you're growing in your GreenStalk that's a little bit taller, that has that possibility of falling over. So basically, we're providing some protection against the elements that I think is going to make a big difference as these finish up their growing cycle. We've had to use different styles of our creation throughout, but it's still been very effective. In fact, here's what the finished product looks like now. One of the benefits of what we've done is we've reduced our footprint once again. So while this may have been spreading out before, we've essentially decreased it in size in terms of width by about half by holding all these in place. And those thunderstorms that we're supposed to get later this week, I'm not really as worried about now because there's not going to be that same kind of movement from the plant that would be there from the wind and all of that rain. And I think that means that we have a much more stable growing space for these potatoes. Well, folks, I think that the potatoes growing in this GreenStalk Vertical Garden are looking fantastic. They're really right on par with where we hoped they would be. And I think that bodes well for our future harvest. Well, we hope that the solution that we came up with is useful to you, even if you're not growing potatoes. If you're growing some other taller vegetable that you want to hold in place, maybe this is the solution for you. And remember that each of the pieces are definitely interchangeable with what you have on hand. So if you want to use string, if you want to use zip ties, or whatever works for you, I think that this might be your solution. Well, if you enjoyed this video today, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, when you're with us, you are good to grow.